welcome to Scorched Earth and the general reading for the sign of Cancer, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of January 2024. Happy New Year. I hope you are well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Before we get started, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is link number 1 in the description box. Link number 2 is to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on the Circle platform. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost and hang out with a truly extraordinary group of people that I am blessed to know, in my opinion, frankly. The third link is to 3-month overviews that I've done for the period of January to March 2024. Yeah, it's down there. Knock yourselves out. So, Cancer, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Can I have 3 cards for Cancer, please? Good Lord. Right, okay. We have the 7 of Pentacles and the 2 of Cups in your recent past. Current energy, please, for Cancer. Thank you. We have the 7 of Cups. And what about what's coming towards Cancer, please, for January? We have the High Priestess. Not really surprised to see that there for you, Cancer. The 3-month overview that I did for your sign was really quite extraordinary. So we have the 3 of Swords at the bottom of the deck with the 5 of Wands and the Hanged Man, and there's something quite reflective about the energies of this. I don't feel like you're about to be hit with any kind of new sort of trauma in January, nor any new conflict, actually. It feels like the process of working through. I mean, let's not forget that this Piscean card of the High Priestess is very much associated with acceptance. You know, what the High Priestess does is allow things to move through her, and there is correspondingly an idea of release that is associated with that. And so, you know, these are pretty profound cards of exactly that happening, but because I've got double Pisces here, which is not insignificant. We're going to put those to the side for a second because I don't want to jump around too much and get some clarifiers out. So, tell me why the 7 of Pentacles and 2 of Cups is here for Cancer, please. Why are these cards here for Cancer? Well, there's the first one. We have the Page of Swords. Oh, goodness. Page of Pentacles in reverse. And the Chariot in reverse. Okay. Tell me about the 7 of Cups. We've got the 4 of Wands and whatever that is, the 5 of Pentacles. Okay. And tell me about the High Priestess. Ooh, 3 cards. We have the 5 of Swords, we have the Lovers, and we have the King of Cups with the Page of Wands at the bottom of this deck here. So I'm definitely going to roll with the idea that there's something really highly reflective going on with you at the moment in terms of your previous experiences and things that you have experienced up until this point. But it feels to me like there's some fairly landmark insights going on with you right now. I've actually lost my selenite. I don't know where I've put it. So I'm just going to, because I need to have something to fiddle with, I'm going to pick my lighter up. But let's start over here. We've got the 7 of Pentacles and we've got the 2 of Cups. Now, the very obvious surface interpretation of this is that there is some dissatisfaction. There has been some oh my God, I cannot speak. It's Mercury retrograde. Some dissatisfaction with relationships in your environment. Now, we cannot run directly to the idea that this is your closest, most intimate relationships, although there is a degree of intimacy implied by the presence of the 2 of Cups. This can be business partnerships, this can be friendships, it can be family relationships. You know, it covers the entire gamut of interactions with people that are above the level of, you know, just, I don't know, people you say hello to on the street every day, you know. There's an intimacy here with this. And the 7 of Pentacles is an awareness that a certain level of effort has been put in and it isn't necessarily getting the yield that we wanted, or that feels appropriate. You know, as well as intimacy, the 2 of Cups speaks to a kind of reciprocal level of intimacy that is experienced by both parties. And for whatever reason, this would suggest that we're not feeling it the way that we want to. What's interesting is this Page of Swords here. which, as you can see from his body language, he's actually looking backwards. Although his body's pointing forwards, he's looking backwards. And there's something kind of reflective about that energy there. It's like working out where we've been so we can decide how to move forwards. It can also speak about new information coming to light, new information that we trip across. But it definitely seems like it's occurred with reference to the past. Now, when we look at the shadow cards that were beneath your reading there, 3 of Swords, 5 of Wands, Hanged Man. These speak to conflicts, they speak to pain that has been experienced and the process of shifting how we understand what meaning that has brought to our lives. Some people balk at that, but every experience is feeding you in one way or another. And the best way that it can feed you is to give you something to work with, right? Allow you to not make the same mistakes moving forwards. And I think there's been something that's been highlighted within your relationships that feels off and therefore is ripe for change. This Page of Swords could feel like some kind of dot connecting that you've done, actually, because the issue may not be your relationships. The issue may be something that you're expecting from your relationships. I mean, I say to my kids, expectations are premeditated disappointments. It's important to talk about these things. It's important to lay everything out up front so that nobody is horribly surprised later on. Now, the expectations may have been of you, actually, and you may have been shocked to discover that people are demanding more from you than you necessarily feel comfortable in giving. And I don't think that that's necessarily a whole new development. It feels more like it's something that you have noticed. Now, again, because this can cover things like business partnerships and work colleagues and things like that, there could be associations with that side of your life, resource-centered part of your life. But what's really interesting to me is this idea that you're slamming on the anchors, as my partner would say, or you have slammed on the anchors, with regard to a particular set of interactions moving forwards. And I really do feel like it's because you are recognizing patterns far more swiftly than you ever have done before, and are feeling very motivated not to repeat mistakes of the past. Where the Chariot appears in the reverse, that is an absolute halt. It's a screeching of brakes. This is not going any further. And the Page of Pentacles in reverse, if it indicates, as it does to me a lot of the time, a discovery of the value of something, this would be a discovery of the fact that something simply does not have value anymore. And it's been by way of reference to the past. Now, this doesn't mean that everything's ending and it's catastrophic, because this actually feels like an act of self-care to me. We've got the Page of Wands over there, so there's definitely a sense that everything that's been happening in your recent past, and that could be this morning or it could be 6 weeks back from here, has been to get you ready to move in a different direction. The Page of Wands is the initiation of a new path, but it's sort of the preparation that happens before you go that way. We see how much of this reading is referencing what you have in terms of experience and wisdom to draw upon to make sure that what's coming up is what you actually want. Now, when we move into your current energy, we have the Seven of Cups, a card that is traditionally associated with fantasy and illusion. I mean, sometimes it can flat out delusion. But there are certainly confusing elements at play when the Seven of Cups appears. Sometimes it can talk about not quite knowing which way to turn, what is the right route forwards, The fact that the clarifiers underneath here are the Four of Wands and the Five of Pentacles. Again, they feel very contemplative. The Seven of Cups here, rather than a reflection of your mental state or your emotional state, being an awareness of the fact that at times you have been drawn into... What I want to say for you is, and it might relate to expectations and stuff like we were talking about before, the this phenomenal capacity that you have to be able to input positive stuff into the gaps that are left by other people. It does directly to relate to expectations in that regard. Let's pull that triple goddess here. So we've got this recognition that at times you have been swept away by the emotional input that you have filled in where there has been a gap. And there is also an awareness that we have done this because not very good at meeting our own basic needs, or at least haven't been in the past. But it's being fueled by a desire to create a new foundation for you that is a really solid platform for you to be able to move off from. Now, I just want to pull some extra cards here, because there's a depth that I can feel here, and almost the Seven of Cups again. A certain level of complexity that you are looking to kind of bring down to its more component parts, so as to be able to understand. And I'm not sure if that's you. Yes, it is possibly you, but again, it's with reference to the past. We've got this Knight of Swords here. It's a Gemini card. It deals specifically with the transmission of information. So it is communication. It's information getting from one place to another, whether that's parts of your brain that are connecting with each other, or whether this is you communicating with somebody else, or actually just the thought that you now are shifting the way that you see the world, see your part in it, and see the significance of what you allow and what you don't allow from other people to come in. We started with the Page of Swords and we're escalating to the Knight. There's an increase in movement here, even though something is coming to an end and something has been halted. It's almost like you've gone, hang on, no, wait, I need to think about this. There's something here, much like I did when I just pulled out these extra cards. Like, there's a depth here, there's a complexity here that might well relate to my understanding of self, and is going to, in some way or another, amount to an opportunity where I can get some real insight into a part of myself that I have not seen up until this point. We've got double Seven of Cups here. And I like this one because rather than having one's heads in the clouds, which is kind of like I wouldn't say it's a fear, but it is an awareness that it is something that you have done in the past. This one has a woman who is standing on the other side of the glass, but she's at eye level with all of these cups. She can see what the cups contain, and she's taking her time to look through the contents of each of the cups to make sure that this is actually where she wants to go. There's something really powerful about not allowing yourself to be swept along by circumstance, and give yourself, circumstance or people actually, give yourself the time to consider what is actually really happening right now. And this seems to be what is going on here, because this Knight of Swords clatters straight into the Six of Cups, which is a card that represents the past. It's it's not your recent past, it's a little further back than that. It can be, your early 20s, actually, depending on how old you are, it could be, considerably, you could have been considerably older when we're going back to whatever it is that we're looking at here. But I tend to regard this as something that speaks about childhood, can speak about past lives too, and that adds an extra dimension of complexity to stuff. But we've got a conversation going on here with your emotional past, with reference to these energies here, right, where there is isolation, there is a lack of some sort being identified in your life, or a fear of it. There's something very considered and very reflective about the energy that you are presenting here, because this is your goal. That's what you're after. And I think it's more important for you than ever that your foundation is firm enough that it's not something that you're going to have to keep coming back to and tweaking. It's something that we want to be so completely solid that from here you can bounce off into whatever the future might hold for you. And that will be, that's a wisdom that's hard come by. Because what it's suggesting to me is that you're taking complete ownership of the mistakes that you've made in the past, and you are so motivated not to make them again that you are prepared to slam the anchors on and say, no, nothing moves forward until the point where I've understood exactly what is going on here. Whether I've noticed or recognized that there may be issues in my relationships, but I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that it is me that is the problem here. I'm not necessarily also either going to jump to the conclusion that it's somebody else. I need to take the time to consider what is going on here and make sure that I am, as well as it's possible for me to manage, getting all of my ducks in a row. Neptune went direct earlier on in December, and it could have been that led to some sort of emotional awareness moment where you've gone from fog and confusion, all that kind of thing, to a recognition that sometimes fog and confusion play a part in what you do for yourself. But this Four of Wands is the linchpin here. It's the drive, it's the motivation, it's the impetus to stop and take stock. That's very, very powerful, actually. And then we move into January. January sees the High Priestess, which is, an incredibly powerful card. It is Major Arcana and the only one on the table, actually, at this point, up until this Chariot in reverse, representing a halting of proceedings, but maybe also an awareness that there is some aspect here of yourself that you have not seen that you're trying to check in with, because that is your card. I should have mentioned that earlier. The High Priestess is associated with great wisdom. She's also associated with a certain stillness that can represent situations not necessarily moving on at the pace that they might have been earlier on. The thing is, because the High Priestess, as I was saying at the beginning, is a conduit, she allows things to move through her. And I do think that what January has for you is quite a lot in terms of making sense of your position in the world, making sense of what this would look like for you. I mean, we've talked a lot, Cancer, in the past about emotional modelling and how for you, the model that you were set in youth, in childhood, was not a healthy one. And it wasn't an accurate reflection of your worth. And it's caused all sorts of issues for you since then. And this is why I say what's going on here is so profound, because not only are you absolutely taking ownership of it, you're not kind of falling into a pattern of self-flagellation and saying, oh, well, it's just terrible, I need to work harder. It's kind of like, well, no, this is an issue. I know that this is an issue, and so I'm going to take my time to check it because that's what I want to do. And this High Priestess is like, I can let go of certain things, I can accept certain things, I can allow other things to move through me. There's a certain... the High Priestess doesn't judge. She never judges. It's not her job to judge. It's her job to allow things to move through, uninterfered with. She's coming out over the top of the Five of Swords, the Lovers and the King of Cups. Now, we just put those two to one side for a second, because I do think that they are talking in harmony with each other. Like there's a message that is the combination of the two that is coming through here. And consider this card, which is a card of self-sabotage. It's a card of a certain type of wonky thinking sometimes, because it is a 5 and therefore it represents a certain instability. And it's swords, so it's communication, it's the workings of the mind again. It is how you think, how you speak, how you hear, which is an interesting one. Because sometimes what we hear, what makes it into our brains, isn't actually what has been communicated. Like I said, I'm recording this in a Mercury retrograde, so I'm acutely aware of that situation at the moment. It can also speak to conflicts that we have outside of ourselves, but I think because there's so much introspection and ownership of particular patterns of behavior and particular patterns of particular emotional patterns. I feel like this is absolutely you internally in dialogue with yourself. If nothing else, the High Priestess would also represent some sort of internal mechanism that is being activated here. And I love the fact that this Five of Swords seems to be being challenged by you inside your own head. Now, we could say, well, that's the purpose of self-work, that's what we all do. But if you take a look around out there in the world, the people who are actually in a position to be strong enough to be able to challenge their own preconceptions, challenge the way that they think, challenge the way that they feel, and say, yeah, okay, it's valid, but is it right? Is it accurate? Is it a proper reflection of what's going on here? Or have I just been triggered into some sort of emotional reaction? And am I now, maybe am I projecting or something like that? Right? That is uncommon. Very uncommon. And you're allowing this energy to move through you because I think your motivation, like I said, is to create this foundation, but also to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly achieve with what you have available. Let's pull some more cards for this Five of Swords, because as ever, like I've said before, Cancer, that I think quietly you are possibly the most complex sign of the zodiac. And I stand by that. And this is one of these readings where I feel like there's a certain set of things that are happening on the surface that look relatively straightforward. Am I deceiving myself? Am I lying to myself about something, as our subconscious often does? Am I seeing this situation clearly? Am I communicating effectively? But underneath this, there's a whole complex flow of stuff that's going on, and you seem to be trying to successfully, I would add at this point as well, put all of these things in the right place so that there's a level of personal objectivity going on. And the extension of that, the corollary of that, is that all of those things that traditionally we as humans allow to get in our way are being carefully and slowly, objectively and methodically dismantled from the picture. Because the focus is the Four of Wands. Tell me about this Five of Swords, please. We have the Three of Cups. And we have the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. Now, what's really interesting about this is that we have all of these energies of stopping and bringing things to a halt. And we also have these energies of initiation. We've got the Fool at the bottom of the deck here, right? So it's like not going that way, going this way. But there are all these checks and balances that you seem to be bringing in. This is really, really deep work. Now, let's just pop those there for a second so you can see them. The Three of Cups for me is emotional support networks, but it can just be your social circle. It can be the people that you spend time with, and that doesn't actually even have to be the friends that you choose to spend time with. That can be work colleagues, that can be friends, family, and whatnot. Where we had the intimacy of the Two of Cups over here, there's something a little bit more expansive about the three. It's kind of lots of people coming together, and this can be a really positive card. Generally is a really positive card, but because what we're doing here is checking, it feels like it's a card of very complex social dynamics. And then we have the Ace of Pentacles, which in addition to being another point of initiation, a seed, all that kind of thing, is speaking specifically to where it is that you put your energy, where you put your attention. The pentacles for me represent energetic currency, so they are points of investment. The pentacles that you hold are what you have to invest, and that could be your money, but it could be your time, your care, your effort, your love, your attention. Where attention goes, energy flows. And it's like, what do I want to invest in? Am I investing because I want to, or because I'm feeling in some way kind of, I don't know, at worst coerced or manipulated into it, or whether I'm sliding into something complacently. What's really screaming through from this reading is the amount of conscious work and conscious examination that is going into things that are so complex that most people wouldn't spend the time doing it. So the question is, do I want to continue investing in the Three of Cups, and maybe by extension, a number of Two of Cups situations that you might be involved in? Or is it time for me to take my pentacle and point it in a different direction? The Seven of Pentacles over here, I said it's a card of something not being quite right? Something not quite giving us the return that we expected. And sometimes that's because of, premeditated expectations, but sometimes that's just because it's just not right. The thing that I really like about the Seven of Pentacles is the fact that it represents that, both that awareness that something isn't quite right, but also a willingness to sit with that and see what that means. Because it puts forward the idea that things staying exactly as they are is not an option. And that in some sort of indirect way, we are being called to make a decision about whether we continue to invest in something or whether we divest. In the Waite-Smith, we've got a chap who's leaning on a hoe, and he's staring at a bush of pentacles and looking, kind of displeased with what he's seeing. And in the original coloration of this card, we could see that the plant is actually starting to brown at the edges. It's starting to shrivel. And in that moment, what he's presented with is the predicament of whether he puts more work into that, right? Does he have to up the amount of fertilizer that he's putting into the ground? Does he need to water it more? Does he need to sit and tend to it in some sort of way, pull the dead leaves off and give what is left a chance to keep going? Or does he recognize that there is something so very wrong with this plant that no matter the investment that he's sunk into it so far, that maybe it is time to just chop it down, dig out the roots, clean up the ground, and try again with something different, or a different kind of methodology? Action is always required, because to not act in those circumstances is to ensure that whatever that feeling is, that something isn't quite right, and you may not even know exactly what it is going to not only continue, but perpetuate and amplify and get bigger. So then, in January, being exceedingly mindful of where it is that you are putting your attention, exceedingly mindful of where the investment of your pentacle is going. We've got you analysing these complex social dynamics that you seem to be involved with. And by social, I simply mean people outside of you that you interact with. And checking in with yourself that continuing with this isn't an act of self-sabotage, that it does not in some way represent a state of wonky thinking that you have worked so very hard to eliminate from your mind. We're always saying the work is never done. There's always something that you can return to. And this sense, that this desire to create a whole new foundation that has joy at the center of it, because it's one of the things that the Four of Wands represents, means that nothing's off the table for examination. For some of you, and I do think it's just a handful of you, there could be some sort of wedding that is coming up. This is a wedding card too. A solemnation of the relationship coming up. And what could be driving you is making sure that you're showing up for this relationship in the best possible way. Three of Cups sometimes can represent interference from outside parties. I hate to, I really dislike the term third party situation, because I think it makes people instantly go into that space of, oh, right, she's telling me that somebody's cheating, and it's not like that at all. I mean, third-party situation, I had one in my marriage, which was that I couldn't match up to my ex-husband's job in terms of what it gave him, because that's where he got his validation from. In that situation, I was absolutely in a third-party situation. But sometimes, the other stuff that's going on, like our own insecurities, or the symptoms of our own trauma, can end up being a third party in a situation. It's just a sideline thing, but I just thought I'd bring it up because I saw it there. The thing is, I think in January you're going to recognize where there are certain aspects of whatever this card represents to you, whether it's complex social dynamics or whether it's a third part of the situation that you had not recognized and now you see it, you can't unsee it. I really do feel like you're taking your pentacle and you're saying, I'm not investing anymore in this. I accept the situation as it is, but I'm trying to cleanse my energy. I'm trying to make myself be the better person, or be a better person than I was even just yesterday. But certainly with reference to what I've experienced in the past. I mean, what we've got going on here is, even though there are things that you are halting and there is a tension that you are refusing to invest anymore, it's not like everything's stopping dead. Like I said, we've got cards of initiations of new cycles, which is incredibly supportive to the idea that you are cleansing everything and putting the attention into where it actually needs to go, which is your foundation. Now, when we come to these two cards here, the Lovers and the King of Cups, obviously the Lovers is the card of Gemini, King of Cups is Scorpio, but I don't feel like those are necessarily that important right now. Over the energetic presentation of these cards, because the Lovers card, major arcana, coming out under the High Priestess, right? The wisdom to be able to speak to your higher self, to be able to see things about yourself without sitting in judgment of those, just being like, I accept that, that's fine, right? This is, these are aspects of who I am. This gives me something to work with. I'm not afraid of those, and I'm certainly not going to be casting them into my shadow, because it represents the biggest possible point of growth for me to meet these head on. The Lovers is a card of conscious co-creation and free will, the exercise of free will. And I can't help but feel that there is a way in which you are absolutely releasing yourself from what's been a kind of cheap version of free will in the past, in the way that you've been exercising it. You've had some really powerful readings in the last few months, and this magician energy of yours has been pushing closer and closer to the surface. And I don't think it's a binary state of you either are a magician or you're not. I think we are all magicians at heart. But what makes the difference is the amount of crap that we allow to sit over the top. And the more of that you can take away, the cleaner, the more pure, the more precise the energy of the magician is able to express itself out in the world. So a lot of the realizations that you've had over the last few months that you are a powerful person will have resulted in shifts and adjustments and changes that you will have made in your material existence, right? In the expression of your life out there in the world. But the work doesn't stop there. In terms of climbing, I'm going to put it this way, climbing the ladder of almost like manifestation influence or manifestation power. There's always going to be something that you come across that you go, oh fuck, right, I might move that out of the way. At least if you're showing up in the right way, that's possible. Most people get so disheartened by what they run into, parts of their own psyche, where they're like, they just fall into that default pattern of, oh god, right, well, I guess I'm just awful, I'm not as good as I thought I was, or any one of a number of things, right? But there's such an objective focus that is emanating from you. We're just pulling it apart. We're just going, no, I don't want that, get out of the way so I can climb up this ladder a little bit more. Because This energy of conscious co-creation is getting in alignment with your higher self. It's getting in alignment with source, right? The energy of the magician is active manifestation, right? That's why it's a very masculine card. But there's something almost passively being manifested here. And it doesn't mean that it's any less powerful. This is the really interesting thing. It means it's very, very internal. And it feels like it's an aligning of internal state to make sure that you can do pretty much anything that you fucking want. And in addition to that, we have the King of Cups, which is the emotional maturation. You know, we're not kind of digging around here in the weeds of self and being like, oh shit, there's still things from my past that are coming up and I've got to deal with those. You know, it's like laser-like focus on the things that are important, where your emotions need adjusting because you're aware that this is, you know, somewhere in your past, this was a default mechanism for you. And it's just stepping up and owning all of it. You know, I feel like the King of Cups is often a recognition of the fact that you are not your emotions. Just straight up, you are not your emotions. Your emotions can come and go and flow and move in and out. You know, you do not have to move from that place all of the time. There's the possibility of a personal kind of transcendence beyond emotions that allows you to see things more clearly. A mistake that some people make with the King of Cups is an assumption that that means that he's an incredibly emotional being. And it's like, well, actually, well, yes, but not manifesting itself in the way that that would imply. It's like, this is somebody who understands that he is not his emotions, and therefore he is in control of them. He's not going to get broadsided by some triggering, you know, some sort of emotional trigger that was catalyzed by something that's just happened, where he feels like, you know, his ego needs to snap back, or his, you know, then he needs to project to protect his ego. This is somebody who's just pretty fucking good where they are, thank you very much. And so it might not have the explosive energy of, where you're getting a new job and a new house and everything's just peachy, but it's something much more significant and much more profound that is kind of pulling along underneath. Or even pushing from underneath, actually, because it's elevating you, Cancer. And it's not by way of anything other than this deepening awareness of self that's going on inside. This is absolutely, I don't know how well I'm doing trying to express how powerful this feels. It's a bit like when I climbed Arthur's Seat with Silas. I took all my kids to Edinburgh and we went up the side. Arthur's Seat is an extinct volcano just outside of Edinburgh, and it starts off quite moderate slope. You can walk up it. By the time you get to the top, it's kind of it's pretty steep. And I was going up with Silas, and it got to a point where I wasn't really walking anymore. He was dragging me up there. He dragged me all the way up to the top in a helpful way, not in a I'm about to go over my face sort of way. But it was interesting because I really got a sense of his power that I had not felt before. You know, if you could imagine like Silas being behind me and pushing me rather than pulling me up. It's that sense that something's underneath you and something is elevating you here, Cancer. And it's you, actually. Three of Swords. 10 of Swords. Do you remember how I was saying at the beginning that all of this, you know, I think I was listening to a video this morning by a woman I've never seen before on YouTube, but she's got over 1 million subscribers, and it seems that she is I don't know. She's been on YouTube for about 10 years, and she makes videos about makeup, which is why I would literally never have watched anything that she ever did before. It's just not an interest of mine. But the video that she put up, it was called something along the lines of "Why we're all dead inside," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Talk to me about that." And she was just cleaning her kitchen while she was talking, and she was referencing the difference between us since 2020. I actually harked back to the 1990s, seeing videos of people walking around in shopping malls and whatnot in 1990s. Not a mobile phone in sight, no social media. People are connected, people are interacting with each other, people are engaging with each other. Bear with me, I am getting to the point. And her point was, it seemed that everything was so instant. There was just instant gratification everywhere. And there was this overabundance of perfection everywhere. That nothing really means anything anymore. It feels like nothing means anything anymore. People are constantly striving for this state of perfection and knowing that they can't achieve it, and then just feeling empty as a result. And I've never seen this woman before in my life, and I probably won't ever watch another one of her videos, but it was so well observed. And the reason that I'm bringing it up here for you is that while I think that she has a point about the convenience, right? And this was even something that was brought up in Fight Club, right? Single service friends, where he sat with the, single fucking single portion of milk, and he's putting it into his coffee, and he goes off on a whole thing in his head about, how nothing has any depth anymore. I think the bigger issue is that we've just lost touch with what it is that gives our lives meaning. And the reason why this is relevant to you, Cancer, is because you seem to be absolutely engulfed with a desire to find meaning. One of the reasons why 2020 changed everything for everyone is because there was psychological trauma, isolation, fear, constant barrage of fear, whether or not you think that was propaganda or what, and there was no healing process afterwards. We just tried to go back to how things were before, but we all know that it's not like that anymore. And what people have not been able to do, and I would say the vast majority of people have not been able to do, is recognize that they went through a traumatic event and then put energy into healing that. Everybody just tried to draw a line under it and pretend that it didn't exist and it hadn't happened, and we just move on. Well, we all know that that is not how healing happens. That's how things fester, right? What you're doing that is so extraordinarily different and correspondingly so personally powerful is that you're recognizing that although you have suffered in the past, and you would never want to go through anything that you have been through in your life, any of the things that have made you, emotionally so pained. Each one of these things, each one of these instances has given you something really profound to work with. It's given you the tools that you have needed in your pursuit of being better than you were yesterday. This hanged man is an absolute shift in perspective of the things that have hurt you, the things that have humiliated, betrayed you, let you down, the things that, the ways in which you feel you have felt conflicted your entire life. You're looking for the meaning in it. You're using it exactly as it was designed to be used, as a tool for you to learn, to grow, to make yourself better than you were yesterday. And as such, your life really does have meaning. It has the most profound kind of meaning. You're not walking around dead inside. And so this really powerful shove that I can feel is just from pushing you up here. That is you. That is you and your pursuit of and arrival at meaning for your existence. Which means that you are loosening yourself from the shackles of the very narrow way that the rest of the world seems to be thinking about material existence. Why everybody's walking around dead inside. Got everything that they need. Everything's hard. You know, everybody works really hard. Everybody's taxed to death. They have everything they could possibly want, and it doesn't have any meaning. And what I love about this is that this is happening in January 2024, and you are a cardinal water sign. You literally point the way for other people. And so all that depth and that complexity that I can feel coming off you in waves, that you are starting to navigate through so expertly, is a balm on a damaged world. It's a salve on a wound for the collective unconscious. And where you go, others, if they have the capacity, will follow, because they will follow your leadership on this one. But in the meantime, you're busy getting ready to manifest an incredible life for you. Not because you become a millionaire or the CEO of some sort of big company or, you know, any of these other things, but because in everything that you do, you are finding meaning. I'm going to leave it there because I want to go over to the extended now and really dig into this, because you've captured my interest and I'm very curious to learn from you actually what it is. So you can join me on Circle or you can join me on Vimeo. Links for both are beneath the video here. But if this is where we part ways, no shade, and I am pretty fucking impressed with what you're doing, Cancer. Really impressed. So I shall leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.